Good afternoon, YouTube. I'm OGF. This is the TVS Apache RR310. I'm on my way to work and I'm going to do a city commute review of the Apache RR310. Welcome to the channel. Now, I've been riding a KTM RC390 for the last 2.5 years. This bike over here is probably the closest competitor you'd have to the RC390 in the Indian market. It's a fully fed single-cylinder engine with pretty much the same technology that the RC390 has, but done a little differently. So keep that in mind while we go through the points in this review. Now, in my mind, there's a few things that you should look for in a motorcycle if you're looking to just use it as a daily commuter. The first thing on the list is comfort. Obviously, the motorcycle has to be comfortable so that even if you're spending a few extra hours in traffic like we do in Mumbai, it's not going to be a problem. Second bit is the handling. You want to make sure that it's nimble enough to get through even if you have to start filtering, like that guy. Next up, we have the heat management, because we all know how the RC, or KTMs for that matter, are known to heat up during a lot of traffic. The brakes, you want the brakes to be responsive enough so that even if they are called into action because of some doofus on the road, you don't really have to worry about them being called into action quickly enough. Next, we have mileage, so you want to make sure that you get the most out of a full tank of fuel. We'll also talk about the gearbox, so how well does it shift. Last up is the lights, so you want to make sure that even if you are traveling late at night, there is a fair amount of visibility that the motorcycle can provide you with. So with all that listed down, let's start off with the first bit, which is comfort. Now, the seat on this motorcycle isn't the biggest seat, but it is pretty wide and there is a decent amount of cushioning on it. So even if you do spend a few hours in the saddle, you're really not going to have a sore butt. Now, seating aside, the riding position on this motorcycle is pretty relaxed as well. While TVS have marketed it as a sports bike and something which is a track tool, I think it's a little more laid back, like a Ninja 650. In fact, it reminded me a lot of the Ninja 650, the older outgoing model. I think it'll be a good tourer for that matter. The riding position's nice and upright. I mean, not too upright, but it keeps you involved at the same time. And I think it can handle a few twisties as well. Again, I've not really put it to the limit on corners, but I'm guessing it would. Now, handling. The bike handles very responsibly. In fact, most of the Apache series handle really well, and I got to experience that firsthand at MMRT a few weeks ago when I got to ride an Apache RR310 on the racetrack. Agreed, that was race spec, but the chassis and pretty much everything else on the motorcycle, the foot pegs and whatnot, was stock. So it handled really, really well. I was pleasantly surprised by that. So this doesn't disappoint either. I think they've carried on that legacy of making good handling motorcycles and have transferred it on to this also. And while it would be great on the racetrack, I think it is pretty nimble in the city as well. So getting around traffic, overtaking, changing lanes, all of that, you really don't have to put a lot of effort into it. You just touch the handlebar a little bit and it moves, touch the handlebar again a little bit and it goes back into the other direction. So counter steering, I think it handles that really well, and if you want to change direction, it does that pretty easily. Not a lot of effort to put into that. Next up, and I know this is one which a lot of people would be asking me in the comment section if I don't mention it, heat management. We all know how much the RC390 heats up, and I've shared a few pictures of it as well on my Instagram account. And this motorcycle handles heat really, really well. In fact, they've designed the motorcycle to take in air directly into the engine and let it out through these fins which are on the side of the motorcycle, which are made to direct the hot wind away from your legs or away from the rider as well. And I think it does a decent job. You never really hear the radiator fan kick in, and I've just had it for 2 days now, but I've only heard it kick in when I stop the motorcycle and I'm about to switch the engine off. So I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but again, the bike never overheats, and the great part is that it tells you what the temperature on the motorcycle is as well on that display. So Unlike KTMs where you have to keep guessing about when is the bike going to shut down, I think if this does shut down due to heat, it will give you a bit of a warning before it actually does that. Let's talk brakes. Now, the brakes on these are a little expensive, but from the little research I've been able to do about it, they are sintered brake pads, and I think that really does the job, because I was again very surprised by how well this thing brakes. There's a good amount of feedback, there's a good amount of bite, and it stops almost instinctively whenever you want it to. The ABS, for that matter, doesn't really kick in as much as it does on the RC390, and I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it doesn't really interfere with the experience you have of riding around, and I'll talk about that more in the review which I do on this on a longer ride. The front suspension is a bit on the softer side when you compare it to the RC390, but again, this is a more practical bike to own around the city and on the highway than the RC390, which is, like we all know, a thoroughbred track tool. Vibrations now. I had a lot of you message me asking me whether the bike vibrates a lot. Now, in comparison to the KTM, which does vibrate a lot, this is a lot more refined, and I think that's purely because of the way it's been put together. The fit and finish on this is brilliant. Yeah, you'd be hard pressed to find any gaps in the fairing or any parts coming loose because of the way it vibrates, and I think that's owed to the collaboration between TVS and BMW. You would feel some vibrations, but that's again somewhere around the 6,000 or 7,000 RPM mark, and it's not really something that is a deal breaker for me, but it does creep in after 6,000 or 7,000 RPM, and I'm guessing if you're riding in the city, you're really not going to explore that much of the RPM range, but if you do, then understand that it will express itself even through the foot pegs on the motorcycle. So, mileage. Now let me show you the information available on the display itself, wherever that is. Yep, there we go. 28 kilometers per liter. So again, really not a lot of difference between this and the KTM, but it seems to be sipping on less fuel than the KTM, but we'll really come to know on a longer distance ride. Now, shifting and the gearbox. I think they've done a good job with the gearbox, though there is a little more effort that you need to put through in shifting gears than you would on the KTM, but that doesn't mean that this is not a smooth gearbox. It still does the job very well. And to add to that, I believe TVS have engineered the gearbox in such a way that you wouldn't have any false neutrals. I forgot what the actual term is that they use to describe that feature, but it is there. So there wouldn't really be any false neutrals taking place if you're trying to shift gears aggressively. And finally, we have the lights on this motorcycle. And now this should give you a good indication of what the headlights are like. So the low beam, like you can see, is focused on that one point over there. High beam is focused on that one point above it. So yep, here you can see how it's focused. You can see that area over there has a lot of light on it, and if I switch the high beam on this one, it goes straight up. So that guy in front of me is probably getting blinded, and it goes right up to that signboard over there. Yeah, I'm sure there's some way to adjust where these headlights are directed, and that's the case on the RC. I'm sure this is going to have a similar feature. Alright, I hope that gives you enough of an indication of how these headlights work at night. Let's go back in time and see how it performs in the other features I spoke about. Now, I know a lot of you will be wondering what's the performance like and so on and so forth. Let me drop in a few bits of information about the performance on the motorcycle. It's got a nice mid and lower range. So again, for city use, that's really pleasant. Also, the gears are nice and short, so if you are moving around the city, that shouldn't be a problem. You'd have plenty of power available in the lower revs on each gear, so that will keep a smile on your face in the city as well while you overtake other chapris and rickshaws as well. Again, I haven't really gotten into details about the suspension on this motorcycle, but understand that it is a little softer than the RC390's setup, and that's a good thing, especially for most of us who ride these bikes around the city more than we would do on the track. And I think TVS have taken that into consideration. The KYB front and rear suspension work brilliantly, and the rear preload is adjustable as well. So if you do want to stiffen that up on the racetrack, you can do so. That's always a nice option to have. Alright, so that's pretty much all I had for today's review of the Apache RR310. If you guys have any other questions or have any other doubts about the motorcycle and want to know more about it, let me know about it in the comment section and I'll be more than happy to add that to the next video. I'm going to be doing another video on the RR310 as a tourer to see how well it can perform on a weekend ride and give you my opinion about it then as well. And a few other details about the motorcycle, like the display, because I know a lot of you were asking me what else is available on the display of the RR310. But that's pretty much all I had for today's video. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. If you did not, well, share your feedback in the comment section. It'll help both of us. As always, at least wear your helmets while riding your motorcycles and ride safe. It's a freaking jungle out there. Goodbye.